Okay, so the fly we're going to tie is this one. I've wet it to give you an idea of the shape. So run this one under the tap. Let's give you an idea of the shape of the head. Nice broad eel-like shape to the head, and then a long tapered body with that nice greeny sandy flash to it, silvery sides and the body, and the whitish belly. So it's just the autumn flatwing. It's a fairly long fly, but it's quite tapered to the tip. And look, we're talking about fishing this October into November. You know, you need a fly that's going to tempt those big bass. So yeah, that's the one I tend to go with, or a slight variation of it. So let's get how to tie one of it. Okay, so this is an Ahrex SA Minnow size 2, very wide gap and a short shank, which is ideal, I think, for this type of fly. I'm just going to use some 200 denier thread. It's a Vivus, and I'm going to catch it in and just run it down the shank here. Now, if you want, you can add a drop of superglue to the shank before you wrap it down, and that'll help it grip, but I chance doing it without it this time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I'm going to start with a bit of white bucktail. Just take a pinch, take it from the base, because they tend to be more hollow, the fibres down there. You don't need a huge amount, just a little bit. And this is going to help support our hackle. So I take some long ones, try and get the tips fairly lined up. Then if you pinch it there and pull, you generally get rid of all the ones you don't want. And I'm going to go almost twice the length of the shank for this. And then I'm just going to trim this off and catch it in. So I'm just going to come back. I'm just going to put a turn or so underneath. It's going to help. Basically, I want this to flare a bit. So I've just got a turn or two underneath, and it's going to help it. I just turn the vise there. You want it to flare out and slightly up is a help. Then I'm going to take a white saddle hackle. I just moved this a little bit, because I think stars are long. It's a long fly, so just going to go in and it's going to curl up. Okay, so I'm just going to tease away some of the fluff there and just get my measurement. So I'm going probably, let's go some little bit longer than the tips of the bucktail. And it's really important with this fly that these feathers are curled up at sport, and that they're nice and webby. I like short, a little bit broader ones at the start, because it's going to support some other feathers. So what I'm going to do is going to break off a little bit of the fluff off of this. Don't necessarily have to do it this way, but that's the way I've always done it. And then basically you want to catch that fluff in there, and that's going to form a base for your hackle. What that'll do is, when you're tying in the hackle by the stem here, it'll help to stop it from rolling off to the side. Okay, so try and line it up fairly straight and on top, a couple of turns, and keep it there. Then I'm going to trim this. I'm going to leave a piece running along here, not too worried. Then we can start to build our tail. So we want another one around the same length. This time we're going to have it down, so concave down if you like. So I've measured that up. I'm just going to trim it here, and I'm quite happy to leave some of the fluff on it, like so, because again that's just going to help. So there's 2 turns there, just pinched it on, that's nice. At this stage I'm going to add a little bit of flash to the tail, so I'm going to get some crystal hair in silver. 2 or 3 strands is plenty. We're going to try and get the strands long, so if I can get some strands that will pull completely out of that tie wrap, all the better. Like so. So I've got 3 there, and I'm just going to lay them up on top, and I want them a little bit longer than those hackles. Now you can add the flash in at the end. I like to add it in around here because I think, you know, white belly on a fly or an eel, and again just leave them a bit long, and the flash a little bit on top and to the side. So I'm going to add another hackle on top of that. I'm going to add a grey dun hackle on top of that. Again, this is a saddle. The first one I added on was from a strong saddle hairline strong saddle, so it's basically a load of saddle hackles strung together with string. And just measure up this, and I want this again a bit longer, so that one doesn't look too bad. Again, see, it's a webby, nice shaped hackle, and I want that to be a little bit longer than the previous hackles. Okay, so again, I've just measured it up the length I want there, cut it, I'm just leaving a little piece, which I don't mind, and I'm just going to hold everything in place here with my thumb. And that's, just make sure it's sitting right. I'm not entirely happy with that. I'm going to pull it back a little bit. It's just inclined to do its own thing for a second. That's not bad. So I'm just going to go forward and come back on those there now for a second. So it's up to you. You can put at least 3 or 4 hackles, I always think, in there, whether you want to add colour or not. Sometimes I add a bit of red around September, October time. If you get your spawn in sand eels, they'll have red on the belly, and it can make a difference. So sometimes I'll add a red in there, or I'll add a bit of red on the underside at the end of the fly. So I'm just going to add an olive to that. So okay, it's a big olive saddle here. And again, I just want to try and pick the right feather. Some nice ones in it. See how these are for length. So I need one that length or a little bit longer. So I think I'll go for the one that's a little bit longer. Catch that in. That's fine. Trap all those down. So I'll try, if I just moisten them a bit, Try and give you an idea what it looks like. So that one is a little bit thinner than the others. I do like them a little bit more of a wider taper coming along, but as it's the last one on there, I think it will be okay. It's hard to get exactly the right feather every time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some flat braid for the body. So you can see this is a big fly, but in September, October, those bass are packing on weight, feeding on sand eels and so on. So your small little bait fish patterns aren't going to nail you the big girls. So I want to leave plenty of room here because I've got that bucktail underneath. Some more bucktail, some flash, and another probably at least 3 feathers. Now again, you don't have to do this. Now that everything is sitting nice on top, you can add a drop of super glue if you want. He says I've got the wrong super glue here. Go and change this for the other one. Got the right one this time. Just going to drop there, and ideally is a small bit along because that'll help get that flat braid to just be a little bit more robust. So be a little bit careful here. Just make sure that you're not going to put so much pressure on that you're going to rotate those feathers. And once that glue starts to set, they shouldn't go anywhere. Just getting that flat braid. I'm just going to finish it off underneath, a couple of turns in front, and I just find it easier to rotate the vise to snip it off. It's up to you. It's looking okay. I'm going to turn the whole fly upside down. You won't be able to see this, well, unless I do this, I suppose. And basically, I'm going to add some more bucktail. So I get a nice enough pinch, and I want it to go along past the bend. So again, there's a little bit of work with this here to try and get it the way I want. So looking at, to the end of those fluffy bits there. So happy enough with that. So trim that off. And just kind of roughly splitting it there. So I'm going to come in with a turn of thread. I'm just going to work it back a bit so that I'm not blocking the eye of the hook too much. It's not going in right. There we go again. Probably not helping that I have the vise at a weird angle, but it's easier so you guys can see what I'm doing. Let's come back on it here. And then I'm going to locate my bodkin, and I'm just going to try and split that about 50-50 if I can. Bring this back around. And then I was going to press up just to bring it up around the hook shank a bit. Just holding it there and bring the thread wraps back so that I'm getting it a little bit around to the sides and it's nicely spread out. So I'm happy enough with that. And I like a bit of chartreuse in my flatwings, so I'm going to get some chartreuse bucktail. Again, I'm taking most of these from the base, close to the base. Don't want too much because I'd probably use 2 bucktails on this. I'm going to start with the chartreuse. I want it about halfway back the tail. This one's fairly nice taper actually to this, so don't have to do a whole lot with it. Just measure that up. So it's about the same length as I had the white underneath. Go a little bit longer on it. Just get that eel shape. Okay, I'll trim that. Stay it on top. Start to pinch down on it. Now, that flat braid is helping to kick that up and out, which is fine because we want to be putting hackles over that, and that's going to flatten it down. Now, so I'm going to add a little bit of olive over the top of that. Get a nicer piece of olive than that. This one. Let's cut that off in close to the hide, and this one will need a little bit more work. Tease out any what they sometimes call rats, the little bits, and I'm quite happy if this is a little bit shorter than the chartreuse. Yeah, I'm just going to sit that in. Let's drop it down, go forward, and come back on it. Let's press it down again because I want it spread out a little bit, and what that does as well is when water hits that, comes over it, it helps to put even more movement into these fibers here. Okay. So I'm going to add another little bit of silver flash at this stage. Again, not too much. Drew 3 strands of crystal hair. Just going a little bit to the side. Just catch them in here. So I'm basically putting them on top and to the side. I don't mind if they're all different lengths, to be honest. I think they sit better if you don't have them all in one length. And then we're going to add a couple of hackles on top of this, and then we're done. So let's move some of this bucktail out of the way. So what I'm going to be looking for here again are sort of your olives and then your darker olives. So sort of 3 different shades of olives here. I'm going to go with the lightest one, then slightly darker, and then slightly darker again. But you can put other colours in. Your flatwings as well. I often do. That's a nice feather here if it's not twisted. Let's see. You don't want them to twist it too much. So I'm quite happy for these to come back along, right back along towards the tail. So I'm going to remove a little bit of the fluff off of this one, and I'm going to trim it fairly short this time. Just be easier not to have too much material going over the eye. I'm going to try and catch it in by the fluffy bit and sit it up on top like so. That's nice. Let's give it 2 loose wraps. Don't want to put too much pressure on it. And then I'm going to get a slightly darker one. And this. So you need pretty long feathers for this. I prefer these ones to be a little bit thinner than the ones that I used on the back generally, but let's see what I have here. Just trying to find Again, just take your time. You want to find the right feather. So I don't mind if this is marginally shorter than the last one. Slightly darker olive. Again, so let's find the fluff spot there. And you'll find that the stem of the feather isn't too thick in that spot either. So just put that one on top of the other one. Just 2 turns back on that. That's nice. And then I have one much darker one here if I can get a nice feather off it. That's going to be my last of these feathers. And you have to sit down, give yourself time when you're tying these. You're looking at up to 20 minutes to tie one of these flatwings. So okay, they're not happy with that. So not happy with that cape. I'm going to use it. One here. Sort of has a browny olive to it, which I like. I'd say this might have been dyed with some picric. It's just light at one end and a bit darker at the others. This one's this will be a little bit shorter than the last two. Everyone's probably different. Some people probably like to have them all around the same length. I generally don't. So again, just catching that in on that fluff spot. And I was keeping everything in place and going right to the eye, or just behind the eye, and back. Now, there's one fibre of chartreuse there. It wants to do its own thing. That can happen. Just have a look. So what I'm going to do is just going to add, again, some people say you don't need to, and you probably don't. Just going to add a drop glue just on the top there, just give it a second to soak in. And once these are lined up properly, you don't really want them to move too much. Okay. I see my flash is taken off. Now you can add jungle cock eyes, sticky on eyes, peacock over the back. I generally favour the jungle cock eyes. If I can locate one of my jungle cock capes. They don't have to be top quality. It doesn't matter if the feathers are a little bit split on them, and they don't have to be huge big feathers either. So let's pick off a pair there and just line them up. And what I usually do is I just come back a bit on the feather like that, and just line up the tips on the two. So I have one on top of the other now, and the reason I'm stroking these back together then, one on top of the other, is the eyes should be the same length. As I say, don't worry if the feathers are split or anything like that. It won't make a difference on this type of pattern. It's not like tying your trout flies. So I was going to give that 2 turns. Turn over the vise and do the same on the other side. And then as I'm going back, I'm looking down from the top here and basically just trying to make sure that the eyes are sitting roughly the same on each side. And what you can do is you can fold those back, turn her to a thread in front, I just trim them off. You can come back along over them, but the head of the fly is starting to get so big at this stage that you find your thread will start slipping and so on. Especially this type of thread. You can add a tiny bit of wax to it at this stage just to give it a bit more grip. So you can. So the last thing that I'm going to do is just going to come back and I want to add some flash. I don't like using the peacock card personally. I do have it on some patterns, but I find that it is inclined to not last with saltwater flies. So grab your flash. I like green or a green and black mix. Be ideal. I think this is a crafty fly one. And I'll pull off as long a piece as I can. I probably want about 3 strands. Usually when that happens, 3 or 4 strands be fine. So I'm gonna cut them long because I want them going well back over the top here. So I'm roughly measuring about where halfway is. And ideally I'd like them to sit, as I say, mostly on top. Like so. So give it 2 or 3 turns down towards the eye and fold them back and just come back over them. Okay, and I'm going to add another bit of wax to this thread because I know it's going to start slipping all over the place if I don't. So I just want to basically cover that. Let's put some tension on this. Cover any green bits that are sticking up there with thread. And then whip finish. So keep some tension on the thread for this bit. Like so. And then cut that off. Now, it's up to you. If you want, you can get a coloured marker and just put a bit of olive green on it. If you want a dark head, do it all. If you want just dark on top, or you can leave it as is. I think the darker heads actually look nicer. So I just got a dark olive, permanent marker, sharpie, whatever you like to call it. I'm just going around. The head of the fly with that. Now, as I say, you can leave a little bit underneath if you want. It's probably inclined to run anyway, but I'm sure those eyes are where I want them. They were looking nice. Give that a few seconds then to dry, and then I'm going to coat this with UV resin. So I'm going to give it one light coat first. Just rotating it in the vise here now. I'm just getting resin all around. Tighten my spring. Like so. And give it a shot of the UV light. And then I'm going to give it a second coat. Now, for the second coat, I'm just going to move it over here a second. I do like to take it out of the vise altogether. This is a tip I picked up from a Danish friend of mine. It just, by applying the resin and letting it run down, just seems to give you a neater, more conical shape of the head. So apply your resin there behind the eye, and if it's going to go anywhere, it's just going to work its way back towards the materials. Like so. I'm just going to hold it up like that. and finish it off. And there's your finished Autumn Flatwing, and it's going to have massive movement in it.